Well, good morning, Inside Sports Nutrition listeners and the world, and Dina, for that matter. How is
Well, thank
everybody
you.
doing this morning?
And happy afternoon if you're not in your morning.
And good evening and good night.
Sleep
Let's
well.
just let's just cover everything. Yeah.
Okay.
So, listeners, today's a special episode. Dina and I are doing our M&M matcha and mate. Although, as we were talking, I am consuming matcha currently, and Dina's on coffee. So maybe it's C&M or MNC. What? Maybe we're the MCs today.
Oh,
Hey, I just thought
nice,
about that.
Bob.
So this is the MC episode. Okay. Let's stop being corny here. Mostly just me. But today, listeners, Dina and I are sharing a couple things that have been on our mind relative to sport nutrition that we think it's so relevant because these things are either popping up in the media or being talked about a lot. And we just want to more of like a current events, but really kind of what's on each of our sport dietitian minds. So hopefully you find this episode interesting. I know you will because these topics are pretty hot. But Dina, where should we start? Would you like to share what's on your mind with your cup of coffee
My cup
in
of
hand,
Joe.
for Joe?
I did preload a little bit, Bob, just to
Oh,
to
okay.
forewarn
To
you
get
and the listeners,
ready.
but I'm very comfortable with our conversation and I am very caffeinated, so that the world is good.
All right.
Uh, well, one thing, the big thing on my radar right now, Bob, is how effective, important, useful our diagnostic testing is
Mm.
for not us, just as practitioners, but the power of pursuing various kinds of testing services for our athletes. And I would argue, even our less athletic individuals, the array of testing services that enable us to really dive deeper into finding solutions, getting to the root of problems, and making a path forward. So that is my opening statement, and I encourage questions now.
That's funny. Shall we go to the prosecutor? No, I'm just kidding.
I
No,
know.
well, it's interesting you bring that up, Dee, because I think if we look back in the days, check
Check.
check that box. If we look back in the days, obviously we didn't have this much diagnostic testing that we could actually do ourselves, right? Or order ourselves, or even through a health professional that is not a medical doctor. So it's been really a changing landscape. I feel like in the past we used to have to go to our physicians for much of this. And obviously we did not have the scope of diagnostic tests we have today. And I feel like, yeah, this is so popular because, what I'm hearing is a lot of confusion and just because there's so many things out there, right? And then just not knowing where to start or maybe even who to go to,
Yeah.
right? So I feel you. This is like for all our listeners, they're probably like shaking their heads, yes, yes, yes. Like, what do we need to know about this? So let's dive into this, D. Like, what do you want to talk about? Like testing specifically. Is there like a category or like certain tests you want to pick on?
I definitely could talk on a few of the tests, but I think first there's just this, maybe it's a gap in knowledge or lack of awareness of this piece for those individuals who are seeking nutrition help, whether that's performance related or health related or just like, I don't know, but I want to learn more about my body and I need someone to,
Mhm.
but how beautiful this is to not only have the practitioner like a dietitian or sport dietitian to delve in to all this, but the investment that we make in a testing service and what it can do, not just even short term, but for long term decisions. And so it's more a general statement. We can do so much with a consultation, right, Bob, or a few
Mhm.
months of time with someone, just
Mhm.
like when you're working with a training coach or a personal trainer, like you invest that time and you work towards results, but without like a baseline measurement or these routine checks to see how performance is changing or what's improving. Similarly, like those other kinds of tests, and I'll mention a few that are on my radar, it's just like, oh, we can make so much more progress if we pursue this nerdy testing. And I think a lot of barrier, I'm sure you can see this too sometimes, Bob, is like the price tag might be a barrier, like for doing a test. But if we can see it as what the payoffs are from the
Mhm.
data and trying to solve a problem or make something better. It's so worth it to
Yeah.
pursue this testing. I don't know if you have a comment there.
I do, just real quick. I mean, that's a
Yeah,
good point. I think that is a huge barrier, is the financial cost.
yeah.
Whether it's, if you have insurance, what I find that obviously, as we know, it depends on the insurance you have, of course, and what they
Mhm.
cover, what they don't cover. But I find that those with insurance, like let's just call it like a basic insurance that covers literally like a physical every year, and you would get blood work with that physical, and the blood work is nothing special. Like it's going to basically give you some information that spits out the fact that you need more testing done, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I feel about that. So why not delve into that? But I feel like, yeah, insurance kind of prohibits sometimes. I mean, with myself, and I don't know what you do, D, but I like budget that. If I know, okay,
Yeah.
this year I am getting two pretty good blood work test, like biomarker test, I am budgeting for that. Like I am saving for that, because I know my insurance does not cover the extensive that I need to support my health goals. And I'm not even talking about performance, right? I mean, that's like not even in the room right now. It's all health, and I'll maybe bring up some examples here in a second. But if I know I'm going to spend, if I know the tests are $500 each, and I'm going to spend $1,000 next year, I'm going to start tucking away like every month to help that, right? Or if someone has an HSA account or FSA, if that kind of covers some of those services. But yeah, I hear that a lot. Is that barrier? And listen, I mean, we're preaching to the choir, with all our listeners, but we got, usually one trip around, right? We've got one body. Like we really need to take care of it. And I feel like the more we can understand about our body to a certain point, because we also have people really going overboard, right? Like we've all heard this, like spending literally millions of dollars on testing and protocols and all this stuff and supplements, like you name it, to try to, turn back the clock kind of a thing.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that. We're just talking about like getting to know your body a little bit more so you can take control of it. Okay, that's
Exactly.
what I wanted to say.
Yeah, super empowering. Well, a few tests, Bob, that I think many people aren't aware of, or I don't know, I just get so much reward from this, like my personal little high five, is like personal joy and professional joy seeing the game-changing aspect of some of these tests. And one we've talked about numerous times is sweat sodium
Oh
testing.
yeah, for
This
sure.
one and done kind of test, different than blood work or some other tests that you need more routinely. But I've just seen such positive transformations, or like I that might be a strong word here, but huge improvements in terms of performance is learning how to better structure your hydration and electrolyte strategies through this learning of your own sweat sodium concentration. So that is so cool to, offer the service and then see how much this, I will say, simple task can make for a change.
And it is so easy. Like seriously. I mean, listen, there are different ways to do sweat sodium concentration. We're not talking about sweat rate, where you just step on
Yeah.
the scale naked before a workout, do your workout, step on the scale naked. That's sweat rate, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about sweat sodium concentration, how much sodium your body is actually excreting during a workout. And here's the confusion, right, D? There, like back in the days, oh, there's my second check in the box. It used to be just a sweat. It actually used to be you exercising in a lab in a big bag around your body, right? And
Yeah.
they literally, scientists would collect the sweat in the bag, analyze that sweat, whichever, whatever fell to the floor. And we've progressed a little bit, obviously. And these patches are pretty prominent these days. And now
Mhm.
we've got some tech to it too. And I don't know. I haven't used a lot of those. I've used patches in the past. I just don't know how much we can trust those right now with
Mm.
validity, right?
Yeah.
And then the way we measure it is so, like it's so simple. It doesn't require exercise. It's like gold standard. It's validated. It's used in hospitals with cystic fibrosis. Or testing for cystic fibrosis in kids. I mean, but it's a non-exercise test. That's the beauty, listeners, is I'm saying you can have your choice. Like if you want to stand and exercise in a bag or put a patch on back of your arm or your neck or wherever, yeah, cool. But whatever you choose, whether it's an exercise, a non-exercise test, get it done, right? It's so this is probably, don't you agree, one of the most economical tests you can actually have done,
For
because you only
sure.
have it done once, like maybe
Yeah.
a couple $100 and you're done, like for
Yeah.
life.
I mean, I'm almost speechless. Like, It's
Yeah.
everyone should do it.
I know.
So if you sweat, you should do it. I mean, the other test that just keeps emerging here and is so exciting in the whole field is the nutrigenetic testing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like the 23andMe kind of test, but just more nutrition, nutrient specific, looking at gene variants. So those like misspellings that we
Mhm.
have on our genes that affect how we, in general, I mean, like how our metabolic pathways work, how efficiently our nutrient absorption and enzyme convert, all this stuff that makes a difference for health outcomes. And just starting with a blueprint test like that can really shine light on answering questions about things that we've been struggling with. And then from a health and a nutritional perspective, and then enable us to make some fairly straightforward changes to nutrition or take it further steps. It might involve a bit more complexity, but it's just like this guide to your own unique self, just like all of the other tests that we offer. But it's so enlightening, provides so much data for us as practitioners, then, and it makes the whole process more, shall I say, more efficient. We work towards the goals a bit more efficiently here when we have a test like that.
Yeah. And I would accentuate that and say and totally support that. And I would say, as because you opened up with this, D, and you said, listen, we can get a lot done with a nutrition consultation, right? Or like a
Yeah.
month package or whatever it is, if you come work with us, absolutely. But if we don't know kind of how the engine is running, right? We don't
Yeah.
know if there's some misfires in your pistons or whatever. And that's kind of these spelling errors. If we don't know, we can't like we'll design very good nutrition plans to support health and training and longevity. But if like you don't know what you don't know until you know,
Yeah.
right? So that
Exactly.
just helps us do our job better, but it also helps you, the listener, manage your body better. Because, I mean, Dee, I was just looking at an athlete's genomic report the other day, and I was like, wow, this is probably one of the top ones that I've seen with so many misspellings, like it
Yeah.
just crazy amount. And I actually had to backpedal a little bit and really, really create a nutrition plan that was somewhat different than I would normally create because of all these misspellings, right?
Okay.
And we don't
Yeah.
need to get into those details, but again, if you don't know this ahead of time, like you
Hmm.
could actually be kind of banging your head against the wall with your current nutrition plan, thinking it's working. It looks like it's working physically, right? But inside, like that's where it counts, doesn't it, D?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna go off on my tangent, but you just like you gotta pop the hood because just what you see on the outside, your body, it's not giving you all of the information you need to support your health, longevity, and athletic
Mm.
performance related goals, right? Things inside you in your body you cannot feel. I cannot feel if I'm not methylating correctly or if
Oh, I
I have
know.
high cholesterol. I can't feel it, right? But
Yeah, we don't have that little sensor on
right,
that's like
right.
on our watch, like, "Oh,
Not yet. Not yet. That'll
not
be in
yet."
another 50, 100 years, but who knows, right? But that's what I'm saying is like, and I get it. Like some people, because I've talked to other people, they're like, listen, I don't want to know. So
Mm,
cool. I get it. Like I totally get that. But if you want to know and you want to do something different or do something about it and kind of take charge of your health, yeah, I feel like these genomics, nutrigenetic tests, and what you didn't mention, they're fantastic, but they're also one and done, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
another one and done test, you're going to pay a couple $100s, a few $100s, and it's done. Like you never have to revisit that
exactly.
again. You
I
just have
know.
to create nutrition plans based on it.
So beautiful. I
I
have one
know.
more test, Bob, that I wanna
Yeah.
mention that I love so much.
Yeah.
This is timely because with the release of the 3rd edition of the Metabolic Efficiency Training book by
What? That's
you,
right. I did just release that a couple months ago, didn't
I
I?
mean, which if anyone is new to the concept or the principles or you've been a follower, I mean, I highly recommend picking up the 3rd edition. And I do
Thanks,
not
Dee.
make commissions unless, Bob, you wanna set something up. I'm just kidding.
I will
So
confirm
anyways,
she does not receive commissions nor
but
sponsors.
this testing, especially for I mean, with all of the fueling and carbohydrate recommendations these days that are going from like one extreme to the other still, is like this test and the consultation that the certified practitioner provides is so helpful for, again, I mean, I just want to say stop wasting time, do this test, figure out where your body is, what your goals are, what your problems are. We do so much in the, couple hour appointment. It is extremely beneficial and is still like top favorite test of mine to do on athletes. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much more we want to talk about that here, but
Well,
wanted to,
metabolic efficiency testing is what you're talking about. I don't know
yes,
if you
the
mentioned that or
testing.
not. Yeah.
I know.
So
Yeah, the
yeah.
test. Yeah.
Well, and it's so true. I feel like you nailed it because there's a couple of reasons to really do it. And one, because there's a lot of confusion on the fueling. Like you said, there's the fueling during exercise or competitions. There's the let's cut corners and not fuel what at all really, or just like
Yeah,
super low, or let's go to the exact or the opposite extreme and just overfuel ourselves, right? And
exactly.
that's what makes it tough. It's not as easy as it was like 10, 15 years ago when we just were like right in the middle and we didn't have these extremes. That is, I think, just to justify what you're saying, Dee, that's where metabolic efficiency testing really, really comes in handy now because it gives you an idea of where your body is at currently based on your physiology and your nutrition daily or your daily nutrition plan.
Yeah.
This is not a one and done test because you should have it done. I mean, it depends on the person, but don't you think at least a couple times a year if you're trying to figure things out with your nutrition?
For
Because as
sure.
you change your nutrition, that changes your metabolic efficiency, right? If I go
Yeah.
low carb, high fat, and for whatever, a few months and I have my test done, and then I go high carb, low fat for a few months, get my test done, it's going to look different. So we actually have to decide which one is best for you, which nutrition plan is best. And the only way to do that, again, is to have the metabolic efficiency test.
Yeah, so insightful, Bob. I just encourage everyone to look into that, especially if you have had a fueling issue or you're new to any kind of endurance sport. I mean, even from our health perspective, which I know you talk about in the book, metabolic health is so critical for our longevity, and getting that testing done for yourself, maybe in conjunction with the nutrigenetic testing, like double whammy.
Mhm.
But this can provide so much armor and like empowerment. Again, not to be too cliche, but
Yeah.
transformational. So,
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I did want to just quickly mention the health benefits of doing that test. Like we're not just talking performance, right?
yeah,
There that metabolic efficiency test again measures how well you are using your stored carbohydrate and fat as energy. And sometimes when we have imbalances of using those stores, those substrates, sometimes we see that they're the detriments in your health, right? So I've been able to sometimes pick this up with people and say, "Oh, wow, your resting, metabolic health, let's call it, is not where it should be, meaning you're burning a lot more carbohydrates at rest. We need to change your nutrition based on that because maybe that's going to go down the road of prediabetes, maybe insulin resistance." So, and that's a big thing in our country right now. The US,
yeah,
Dina, is insulin resistance, right? It's
exactly.
just it's a precursor to a lot of these disease states these days. And not that this metabolic efficiency test directly measures that, you need to have a blood work test done, but it gives us some hints onto how efficient your body is using the nutrients that
Mhm.
you're actually eating, and if you are efficient or not at using them.
Oh, well, those are kind of the three tests that I have had so much on my mind this year, this summer. I mean, it's been a thing for a while, but just, new props to, I guess, out loud say how important these tests can be and how life-changing. So,
Yeah.
Bob, I want to know what's been on your radar here and in your mind.
Well, those are solid. I just want to say that there are a million other tests, but those are
Yeah.
like I feel like top three solid tests. And listeners, don't take that as like Dina's top three tests, right? It's just the ones that have been on her mind lately based on what's going on. So in my world, it's been very prominent and just a lot of discussion and confusion, and mostly because I will blame it on media, in a good way though, and sometimes not. But supplements. So
Mm,
I've said this before, like supplements can be great, they cannot be great. They're very confusing to most people. But here's what I'm talking about. In my world, I classify supplements into three categories, right? Ergogenic aids, so those are performance enhancing. I'm not talking about those. Those are like caffeine and creatine and beta alanine. Sport supplements like our bars, our gels, our sport drinks, not talking about those. This is what's been on my mind. Health supplements. So
okay.
supplements that people are specifically taking to try to improve health markers. So I mean, obviously there's a performance line there, but I'm just talking about health. And this is really where it stems, D, is I just have to, this is why it's really hot on my mind, is because greens powders, reds, blues, oranges, like whatever, these greens powders I feel are taking over right now. And this is why it's so on my mind, because this kind of the trickle down effect is a lot of individuals are asking me not only about these powders, but also now about, well, single nutrients, micronutrients. What about vitamin C? What about minerals? What about calcium? What about iron? What about zinc? And I'm like, wow, this is on fire right now, right? And I feel it is because I mean, multivitamins have always been a thing, right? They kind of
Yeah.
come and go like the fad diets, but I feel like these greens powders have really put them on the map again. So what's been on my mind is really the why behind taking them. And
Mhm.
we're big with this, and it kind of fits actually interestingly on what was on your mind with testing. But why is someone taking a vitamin D supplement? And if they know why, hopefully it's for the right reason. Hopefully because they've been tested, they know they're deficient, they've been consulted, like the proper dosage. Great. That is actually why you want to take health supplements most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time to help a deficiency. So maybe you're iron deficient, maybe you're vitamin D deficient, maybe you're a vegan or vegetarian, you have low vitamin B12. That yes, yes, and yes, check those boxes. But the whole, like, I'm taking a greens powder because, right? And I feel like a lot of people take greens powder, D, because marketing, because
I was
there are
gonna
some companies
say,
out there. I
yeah.
mean, don't you see it everywhere? Like, we
I
won't mention
mean,
the name, but right?
oh yeah, yeah, especially, I mean, everyone here is listening to a podcast right now, and if you're
Yep.
into the health athletic
Yep.
hack thing, then you're probably hearing an ad for one of these powders.
Right.
Not on our pod.
Not on our pod. No.
But
But
yeah, it is everywhere.
that's where the confusion is. And I fall prey to that too. Like there was a time about a year ago, I was like, oh, I don't know. Should I take a greens powder? So
Mhm.
marketing works, like no joke, right? It
Yeah.
is working because it pops up in your feeds or like wherever, unless you're somehow able to stay off of social media and avoid the internet, but that's not really possible these days for the most part. But and it's not dogging these supplements, but from a health supplement standpoint, like you've got vitamins, minerals, greens powders, you also have probiotics, you have omega-3 fats, you have all of these things that can affect your health. But again, it comes down to the why, right?
Mhm.
So I feel, because I always get this question from athletes, oh, well, what supplement should I take? And then we have to break it up into the categories. But we always talk about the why. Like, oh, Dina, well, like, why are you considering, taking zinc? Like, let's talk about it, right? Are there some deficiencies going on? What is your nutrition plan like? Like, possibly there are some deficiencies. Or vitamin D. Vitamin D is not a good example because there's such a high prominence of deficiency these days in many people. But I just feel even like an easy one like omega-3 fats, like fish oil, you could argue that a lot of people probably should be taking that because from a nutrition standpoint, not a lot of us actually eat a lot of omega-3 fat-rich foods, right? And the benefits, so that's the thing, it's like why you're taking it and then what benefits does it provide based on the cost. So it's kind of the, return on your investment kind of a thing. But I don't know, it's just I don't really have a set piece here, like a set message other than probably answer or ask the question, why am I thinking about taking something like a health-based supplement, something
Yeah.
like a greens powder, something like an omega-3, something like a vitamin D, vitamin C. I mean, they're all in that category, but I think of the why. And I'll pick on probiotics really quick. I love probiotics to death in foods, right? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But we know most people don't eat a lot of probiotic rich foods, fermented foods. So they just go to the supplement. But it's the why, right? It's the probiotics are so controversial. Probiotic supplements these days are so controversial for health because there's not a lot of information that is actually known about every individual's microbiome. So your microbiome is very different than my microbiome based on our genetics and based on what we eat. So if I take supplement ABC and you take supplement ABC, guess what? We're not going to have the same results because we
Yeah.
have different bacteria. So that's the thing. It's the why, but then it's the, okay, I need to go down this road. It's the which ones are you choosing? So
Mhm.
if you're going to choose to take take a probiotic, right? We have to really look at where it's coming from because I mean, how many times have you had someone come up to you, D, and say, "Oh, I'm just going to go down to my grocery store and pick that up," right?
Oh, yeah.
And what is your response?
Well, sometimes I'm like, keep in mind you get what you pay for kind of
Yes.
response, but I'm
Yep.
not
Yep.
trying to be, too elitist there,
Yeah. Yeah.
but definitely quality in that whole conversation.
Quality, validity, I mean, everything,
Yeah.
reliability. I'll tell you this, listeners, most of the supplement companies who do have like a lot of quality, high quality control, good manufacturing practices, they will not be in our normal grocery stores because for whatever reason, they probably can't get a lot of shelf space because of their price point that they cannot offer to the grocery store, right? And that's what you were talking about. Do you kind of get what you're paid for? So in grocery store supplements, most of the time there are some golden nuggets every so often, hidden ones, but most of the time these high quality manufacturers can't get into grocery stores because of their higher
Right.
price point, because they have higher overhead because of their manufacturing processes. Maybe they're third party certified, so they have to actually pay another organization to certify what's in their supplement is actually in their supplement and it's safe. So I guess that comes down to like where you're shopping for your health supplements also, right?
Hmm.
Now I will say maybe right above a grocery store would be like a natural food store, right? I've seen actually some good brands in more natural food stores, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, most of the time, I'd be curious. I'm going to ask you this question really quick, D, but most of the time, I feel like you almost have to try to get them on the manufacturer's website because that's where you can actually trust that it is literally coming from them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you recommend for that? Like where to shop for health supplements?
I think there are some portals, like I use FullScript to,
Hmm.
kind of resource and vet all the products. But yeah,
Yep.
I definitely would say if you're shopping on your own to go direct to that manufacturer.
Yeah. And let's just, while I'm on this topic of health supplements, because some of them have these what are called proprietary blends,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh boy, that
Oh.
that just raised my blood pressure a little bit, right? If there's a proprietary blend, like there's all these you think are maybe great nutrients listed out, and you're like, wow, these sound awesome, but it says proprietary blend, 5 grams, but you have no idea how much in each individual nutrients
Yeah.
or yeah, nutrient is actually in there. That's a red flag. That's a huge red
Yeah.
flag because you don't know how much of one thing versus the other. And if you're trying to take it for health and you're trying to target something, you kind of need to know how much is going in your body. Like if I'm going to take
Yeah.
vitamin D, I want to know if it's 1,000 IU, 2,000 IU, 5,000 IU. I don't want it to be a guess.
Right.
Yeah,
We didn't plan this, Bob, in this conversation, but I feel like our two areas are connecting in a
they
way
really are, aren't they?
because
Yeah,
if you're gonna do the supplements and you're asking why, and the answer is because I want to live my best, perform my best, live my longest, healthiest life, those kind of things, or fix something, I feel like that testing
hmm
or set of testing services helps get you to answer if you need a supplement, which one, how much, what's the best, or there's another path identified to get to answering your question, why, or and
right.
how do we do it? So I know we didn't plan that, but they do seem connected. Or
They
well, they
do.
are
So
connected.
they're absolutely hand
Yeah.
in hand. Like one should not go without the other, right? For the
Right.
most part, unless you're just, maybe, oh, I'm just taking vitamin C. Like you're taking vitamin C because you think it's going to help your immune system, prevent colds, whatever. I mean, that's something where do you need to get tested for vitamin C? Probably not, but
Yeah.
it'd still be a good idea. One of those things, like
Hmm.
it'd still be a good idea. Here's my little story, D, to kind of mesh, since we kind of mesh both of these together. And I love story time. So
Okay.
here's my story. My mom, and God love her soul, and she listens to our podcast. So hey, mom, she recently went to the doctor, had some blood work testing, some basic blood work testing, like basic. When I say basic, I mean just like blood lipids, cholesterol, triglycerides, LDL cholesterol, HDL, like the basic stuff you get at any doctor. And I said, okay, well, have them also do an advanced blood lipid screening, which is sometimes called particle size or NMR, or it's just a little more advanced. So you can see actually the particles of the LDL, the HDL. You can see ApoB, lipoprotein A, like all these little things. And I'm like, get that because we have family history of high cholesterol, heart disease, all that stuff. I'm like, you probably need to get that, right? And so it was, I have to tell you, Dee, it was a struggle, even for me to
Mm,
listen to, but what she went through to try to get the
mhm.
test. She's like, no, my cardiologist will not order the test. I'm like, what are you talking? Like
Yeah,
that's okay. Maybe I don't know this, but isn't that their job? Like if a patient knows that, hey, I kind of need like, but that's where I'm seeing this dichotomy here is we are actually controlling our health a little bit more. So I think a lot of the physicians are like, whoa, 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 you're no, 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 you're playing Dr. Google right now. No, no, right? Anyway, she finally was able to get this NMR, this particle size screening, and gave it to me because I needed to have that data because she saw the cardiologist again. And I said, okay, I read the numbers and I said, okay, this is what's going to happen when you go to your cardiologist. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to this guy, the doctor is going to want to put you on statins. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, your numbers are going to suggest that, right? That's the
mhm.
first thing they're going to do, but they're not looking at the particle size. This is why we're looking at particle size to see what's going on underneath the surface, right? So the whole point is she had the basic testing done. I pushed her to get the more advanced testing done. The doctor recommended statins based on the basic testing. She went back to see him and said, no, thank you. I'm going to do some nutrition interventions for a while, try some things of which obviously I'm now her, care provider, for nutrition
Mhm.
because I know this is exactly what we're doing. So we're coming up with a plan based on her advanced testing. Now, I don't know if I want to say this or not, but I'm going to say it anyway because let's just get a little edgy, shall we, Dee?
Okay. I mean, that is not uncommon here.
So another thing that really bothered me it's with this episode because it's on my mind is after the cardiologist recommended a statin, which I'm not discounting. I get where the world's at with this. You know what he said after she said, no, I'm gonna work with my son who's a registered dietitian, like not a fluke thing. And we're gonna try this for a few months. We're gonna try a nutrition approach, blah, 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 blah. And he said, okay, well, I just want you to follow a plant-based diet for 4 weeks and come back in and have your blood work measured again. If your results are not where I want them to be, I want to put you on a statin. My blood is boiling right now,
I
D.
know.
Do you have any comments on that, D?
I have heard a number of cardiologists suggesting vegan diets
Hmm.
based on a couple blood work tests, and that is that. And
Yes, that's where you want to go with that.
yeah. Ooh.
Well, yeah, a couple things. One, we are all individual listeners.
Yeah.
A vegan or plant-based diet, 100% plant-based diet will not work for every single person. We know
Yeah.
this. And it's interesting because I was talking to my mom about this. I'm like, hey, I actually pretty much tried that. And, we're kind of related, have the same genes and genetics, and our blood work is very similar. I'm like, that is not going to work for you because I already did that experiment. Do not do that. That will destroy these numbers. The other thing, D, that I just want to bring up is come back in 4 weeks. What?
Mm,
For blood
yeah.
work? I
Yeah.
mean, so listeners, if you're not picking up on this, like I recommend if we're going to do nutrition interventions for this type of topic, I recommend a minimum of 3, if not 6 months to really have all of this come together. So
Yeah.
I think Dina's shaking her head right now. You can't see that, but I
Yeah.
think she's in agreement with that.
Yes. Oh, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, 2, 3 months minimum for
Yeah,
sure. I mean,
right?
let alone just to figure out what the heck I eat. How do I make
Yeah,
that happen? Is this for me?
exactly. Right.
Because, yeah.
That's my example. So it is, but it kind of comes, to full circle here where we did the testing, and now we're doing a nutrition intervention. We'll do retesting in about, 5, 6 months, to see what the next step is, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just that's what we're mentioning this whole podcast, this episode is like we need to take control of our health. And listen, if it means getting a test that you've never had done before, nutrigenetics or sweat sodium concentration or metabolic efficiency, like get it done because it's so beneficial. Like this is your body, this is your health, this is you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
nobody wants to be sick or frail or anything like, I feel like we can do a lot more nowadays than we were able to back in the days. That is 3 times I've said that in this episode, just FYI, if listeners, you're keeping track.
I
I've
mean,
never
I
said that
was
3 times.
We set a new record here. It's a PR.
Yes, we set a PR in our episode. All right, so that's what's been on my mind.
Bob, I mean, there's a lot of points here mentioned throughout. And I mean, really, we're just trying to help individuals clue in to things that may pertain to them or things that are coming up for them to provide more direction or validity to your experience and maybe try something different or have a little bit of pause in what you're hearing or having suggested to you, seeking another practitioner sometimes to, it's never too late to change gears or never too early, I suppose, to
Yeah, very
hop
true.
on, right? So
Listeners,
that's,
we encourage you to reach out to us, email us,
yes,
hello at
yes.
insidesportsnutrition.com with any of your questions. Now that we're on these topics of testing and supplements, hit us up with some questions. We love to answer these. We'll possibly even turn it into a future episode. So we always love hearing from you. Of course, you can also DM us on Instagram, ISN Podcast on Instagram. That would be super easy also. But yeah, Dee, let's wrap it up. Anything else?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think just we appreciate you tuning into this episode and following along. Definitely reach out via one medium or another. And gosh, we so appreciate you tuning in. And you know what? We'll catch you on our next episode.